Stay hydrated, kids. Nossa, eu tô me sentindo a própria Maria Bethânia com esse cabelo. Eu amei. Well, hello there, welcome back. Today I'm here with my January wrap-up, which I do realize I'm a bit late to the party. But it's fine. During the month I read 7 books in total, and today I'm gonna talk about them. The first book I read was You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah. I listened to this on audio. It is narrated by Alaska Jackson. This follows a girl called Liz. She wants to go to a specific university, but in order to do so, she has to get 2 scholarships. Otherwise, she won't be able to afford it. I'm very active with my hands today. But she ends up getting only one of the scholarships, and she needs to figure out a way to get the money to go to college. Luckily for her, her small town is very obsessed with prom, and whoever wins prom king and queen ends up getting a scholarship for college. Because of that, Liz decides to run for prom queen. This was super cute. It was adorable. It's a cute rom-com / coming of age type of story. It's a fun read. It's a bit cheesy at times, but in a way that makes sense for the genre, you know, kind of like a genre convention in my opinion. And it's just all around very cute and heartwarming, and I think it will make a great film. There's also a sapphic relationship between the main character and her love interest, which is pretty fucking cute. And I really like the overall themes and message of the book. It's about staying true to yourself and standing up for yourself, and about when you stop shrinking yourself down and start taking up space and becoming your own person. And I also really like the message that you don't need to always be strong, and you don't need to deal with everything alone. The characters actually feel like teenagers, and the anxiety rep in this is amazing. Also, Liz's mother had sickle cell disease, anemia falciforme para os brasileiros, and her brother has the same disease too. It's tropey and cheesy, but in the best way possible, and the audiobook was very good. I rated this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next I read Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown. I listened to this on audio too. It is narrated by Echo Brown herself, and this is a fantastical memoir, I guess you could say. Like, it's a memoir, but there are fictional elements to it, magical elements to it. I mean, the subtitle is The Remarkable Story of a Teenage Wizard, and it basically follows the teenage years of Echo Brown, and it uses magical elements to further the story and, you know, further drive home the themes. It tackles many important subjects, among them drug abuse, addiction, poverty, misogynoir, sexual assault. Trigger warning for sexual assault though, because it's pretty explicit. It happens on the page, but I didn't feel like it was exploitative. It wasn't gratuitous. This was amazing. It was so amazing that I listened to it on audio, on script, and as soon as I finished, I bought the hardcover. I needed to have it. It's so good. The writing was beautiful. I loved the way that magic was incorporated into the story, and the characters again felt like teenagers, you know, like real teenagers. It is written in such a sensible way, but at the same time it's very raw and powerful. The chapter that deals with sexual assault and the chapters right after, you know, that deal with the aftermath and with bringing the person back, it was just very cathartic and healing to me. I can't explain it. I know it sounds silly, but I sobbed my eyes out, and I can't wait to see what Echo Brown has in store for the future. Oh, and the audiobook is perfect. It's amazing. Obviously, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. I also listened to this on audio. You know, we have a bit of a theme here. And the audiobook is narrated by the author themselves. When the person's pronouns are they, them, do we say themselves, or do we keep it themselves, as it would be if you were plural? Let me know in the comments down below, because I have no idea. This was a memoir about George's life as a black queer person. I can't remember now if it was at the very beginning of the book or at the very end, but George tells the reason why they decided to write this book in the first place. I forgot to explain this properly. George wrote it almost like a mixture of a book of instructions kind of, and a cautionary tale of sorts. Like, they don't want all the queer kids to go through some of the same things that they went through, and to have some of the same thoughts and ideas that they used to have. And I loved it. I really loved the story behind the book, as well as the way it talks about race and queerness and sexual assault and the intersections between all three of those things. And George M. Johnson did not hold back. Like, this is very raw. I don't know how they mustered up the courage, honestly, to write such a personal book like this, but I am very thankful that they did, honestly, because it was very good. The audiobook for this was also very good. However, I think my main gripe with this book is more of a matter of personal preference and also a matter of the timing, because I listened to this right after I listened to Black Girl Unlimited, and for some reason I thought that this book would be more like that, you know, kind of have fantastical elements and be a bit more poetic. I don't know where I got the idea from. So that was more of a mistake on my part. You know, I had specific expectations that I just pulled out of my ass, basically. But yeah, this was very good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Serpent Secret by Sayantani DasGupta. This is the first book in the Kirunmala in the Kingdom Beyond trilogy. It follows this ordinary teenage girl called Kirunmala, and it's inspired by Bengali folk tales and mythology. In the morning of Kirunmala's 12th birthday, her parents just vanish out of thin air, and she finds a demon in her kitchen, basically destroying her house. And soon after, 2 princes show up out of the blue to kind of rescue her. This is a very complicated one for me to discuss, because if you told me the story of this book scene by scene, kind of summarizing it, I would say, oh, that's a great book, and I would think that I was gonna love it, because the story in and of itself is good, and I really like the way it mixes mythology and science. The idea of each character I also think is very good, but the writing completely ruined it for me. I hated the way it was written. It was just written in a very distant way, if that makes sense. Like, it was hard to connect with the characters, and it read to me more like a summary. You know, there was a lot of telling instead of showing. It read like a first draft, basically. No, I don't think this is because it's middle grade, because I actually quite enjoy middle grade. So also, Kiran was very much not like other girls, you know, the trope, not like other girls, and she just had this sense of superiority for being like that. There was a lot of internalized misogyny in it, which I do understand is a thing that happens in real life. You know, it happens to girls, and lots of girls are like that, but it's never properly addressed in the book, so it doesn't seem like the book sees it as a problem, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, all the characters were very distant and the pacing was off, but you know, pacing isn't really something that I usually care about. It was more so that I didn't click with the writing, which is sad, you know, because I really wanted to like it and I really thought I was gonna like it. This was clearly a labor of love, you know, for the author, and you can really tell the amount of work and research that she put into writing this book. And it's clear from the author's note that the author really poured all her heart in it, and you know, that she put in the work to incorporate the mythology and the science and all that. And I'm genuinely happy for, you know, children of Bengali immigrants in the US who are gonna have this book from now on. But I personally just hated the writing in it, which is sad. I gave The Serpent Shadow 2 stars. Then I read the first 2 books in the Firebird trilogy by Claudia Gray. The first one is 1,000 Pieces of You, and the second one is 10 Skies Above You. 10 Skies Above You. This trilogy came out quite a while ago, but this was my first time reading it. No, actually, last year I read the first book, but I didn't continue on with the series, so now I picked it up again because I didn't really remember it. And I really like it. It's a lot of fun. So this is about Margaret Kane. She is the daughter of 2 scientists who basically created a device to travel between dimensions. This first book starts with Margaret arriving at another dimension because she is looking for the guy who killed her father, because she wants to kill him. And it basically follows her as she jumps through dimensions following this guy in order to avenge her father's death. These books were so fun, you know, and so creative. Every single world that Margaret visits is so different from one another. I really like the sciencey bits, and I really like the artsy bits because Margaret is a painter, and that is the sort of love triangle, but I really like the way it's done here. One very cool thing is that the Firebird, which is the name of the device, it only transports your consciousness? I think it's conscience. It only transports that, into another dimension. It doesn't transport your body. And so you can only go to dimensions where you already exist. Like a person with the same genetic makeup, I guess I could say, who is the child of the same parents as you, who are the children of the same parents, and so on and so forth. I hope that made sense. Like, your mind travels through the dimensions into the body of you from that other dimension. And when I first heard that concept, I was just kind of iffy about it, because like, you're essentially getting into a person's body without their consent. But I was very surprised that the book didn't really shy away from these topics, and these ethical dilemmas. I mean, in the first book, it kind of shies away a little bit. It does bring up these issues, but it doesn't really delve deep into it. But in the second book, you really go a lot deeper on it, and really discusses all of the moral issues with this whole thing, as well as the fact that it can be very painful, traveling through dimensions, because in some dimensions people you love are going to be dead, or they may have never existed in the first place. Or you could travel to a dimension where someone you lost in your dimension is still alive, and you're going to have to see that person, which is very good, but at the same time it's very bad because it's painful, and that person is not really your person. And I really liked and appreciated the fact that the second book went a lot deeper, on all of the ethical and moral ramifications of this device and of this type of traveling between dimensions. It was super creative, and it's very fast paced, and it's very visual too. It's very easy to read and kind of picture the world, which is something that I usually have a hard time doing. And yeah, it's just very fun. I have the third book with me, which I'm gonna start reading soon. I'm so fucking excited because the second book ends in the biggest cliffhanger ever, and it ends in a way that is gonna bring even more discussions to the table in the next book, which I'm very excited about. And if this fucking love triangle does not become a triad, I'm gonna scream. Honestly, the potential is there. If it doesn't happen, it's just gonna be such a waste. I gave the first book, 1,000 Pieces of You, 3.5 stars, and the second book, 10,000 Skies Above You, I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars, because I felt like it really elevated, the trilogy, and it elevated the series, and it's got so much potential for the next book. I hope I won't be disappointed. And the last book that I read in January was Bitterblue by Kristin and Cashore. This is the third book in the Graceling trilogy. No, not trilogy, a series. It's a series now. It still feels unreal to say that. The Graceling series is one of my favorite series of all time. I really, really love it. It was so important and influential for me in my formative years. And these books are all very feminist. This was a reread for me, and this is actually my favorite book in the series. And I mean, you can tell that this reread went very well. For those of you who don't know about the Graceling series, it's a series that takes place in this world with 7 kingdoms. And in this world, some people are born Gracelings, which basically means that they are born with 2 different colored eyes, and they have a special ability, which is called a grace. The graces range from super useful things to super useless things. Like the main character in the first book, Katsa, is graced with killing, but there are people who are graced with cooking or swimming or opening your mouth to the length of your head. And the main character in this third book, Bitterblue, is a character that previously appeared on Graceling, the first book in the series, where the protagonist of that book basically saved her life. Each of the books in the series follows a different female character, and Bitterblue takes place 8 years after Graceling, I believe. Now, this series is very character-driven and theme-driven, I guess you could say. Like, each book has a overarching theme in it, and all of them are 100% character-driven books. So if you're a very plot-driven reader, or if plot matters a lot to you, then this book series is definitely not for you. I personally am a very character-driven reader. I would say like 100% character driven. I don't give a fuck about plot. Like, if the book has a good plot, great, but I don't give a fuck. As long as I care about the characters, it's fine. This basically follows Bitterblue. Bitterblue is the name of the main character, by the way, as she is queen of her kingdom, which she has been ever since she was 10 years old. And it follows her as she tries to get her country back together, essentially, because her father was a very tyrant king, and now she has to deal with the consequences of his actions and to find a responsible way to help her nation move forward. The political aspect of this book is just chef's kiss. It's amazing. It's perfect.
It's beautiful.
At its core, I think this book is about healing and taking accountability and the weight of responsibility. In the book, there are lots of people who are essentially trying to bury history in order to move forward without dealing with the historical baggage of the kingdom. And one of the core themes of the book is that you can't bury history. If you bury history, it will eventually come back to bite you in the ass, because you have to know your history in order to avoid it being repeated. You can only truly heal and move forward if you acknowledge the problems in the first place and actively work on them. And about the lingering and everlasting effects of trauma and how it doesn't just go away because your abuser is gone. It also talks about how suppressing education is a way to help you control the masses, because education is an invaluable tool to the people, and at the end of the day, knowledge is power too. And you know, all of that hits really close to home to me because I am Brazilian and my country was in a military dictatorship less than 40 years ago. I think I'm only 10 years younger than my democracy, which is wild. It was a very brutal military dictatorship, and in it, the suppression of education was also a key component of controlling people, you know, and it also used the suppression of information and, you know, the tampering with information. And I mean, to this day, we still suffer the consequences of that period of time, especially because so many of us refuse to acknowledge that period of time for what it actually was, which is a brutal, bloody dictatorship. I love all these characters so fucking much. I think Bitterblue might be my favorite protagonist in this series. And I loved seeing how much these characters grew since the first book and how this third book ties the other two together. And Bitterblue coming to the conclusion that monarchy, as it was absolute tyranny, you know, and that a monarch should not have all of the power. But at the same time, her people right now need a leader. And so she has to kind of reinvent what being a queen even means. And she has to find a more just and fair way to rule her people, and a way to incorporate the people themselves in the ruling and in the decision making and all of that. This is just amazing. I highly recommend the series, especially the third book. It really is so fucking good. And I really love seeing these three main characters growing into their own persons and kind of taking control of their own lives and finding their own agency and their own power. And Bitterblue, oh, I love her so much. She is so she is healing from her own trauma while at the same time having to deal with the trauma of an entire kingdom. She is very sarcastic and very sassy, but she's also very kind and, you know, just. Justice is one of the most important things for her. It's just amazing, honestly. Go fucking read it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, obviously. I read this for the Graceling Read Along, which I'm co-hosting with 3 other amazing hosts. And the live show for that happened on my channel. I'm going to link it up above and down below in case you want to check it out. We go a lot more in depth into the themes and the characters and the relationships of the book. So check it out. It was a very good discussion. And I'm also going to link the information for the read along down below. And now I'm very excited for Winterkeep, which is the new installment. And it's going to be completely new to me. And Bitterblue is going to be one of the main characters in it. And so is Gideon. I'm Gideon's little bitch. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, comment and subscribe if you feel like it. And as always, I'll see you around.